Welcome to the Noble Wisdom Path, where we uncover the sacred truths of your journey through Buddhist wisdom. In the moment of disrespect, your silence can speak volumes more than any words. When someone hurls insults at you, when they question your worth, when they try to diminish your spirit, what if the most powerful response isn't to fight back, but to remain still? Today we explore the transformative silent power that emerges when you choose peace over reaction, wisdom over ego. Drawing from ancient Zen teachings and modern neuroscience, you'll discover why staying quiet after disrespect isn't weakness. It's the ultimate strength that allows karma to work its natural justice. Imagine this scene: a sleek conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking a bustling city. Sarah, a 35-year-old project manager, stands confidently at the front, wearing her favorite navy blazer, the one she always wears for important presentations. She spent weeks preparing this proposal, meticulously crafting every slide, anticipating every question. As she explains a key financial projection, a colleague interrupts her. "This is completely unrealistic," he scoffs loudly. "Anyone with basic industry knowledge would know these numbers are fantasy. I'm surprised you'd present something so amateur." The room falls silent. All eyes shift between Sarah and her critic. Her heart pounds, her cheeks flush. Every instinct screams to defend herself, to counterattack, to prove him wrong on the spot. But instead, Sarah takes a deep breath. She pauses, maintaining eye contact with her critic. Then, with remarkable composure, she simply says, "Thank you for your perspective. I'd be happy to address specific concerns after I complete the presentation." She continues without missing a beat. Later that day, her critic approaches her privately. "I want to apologize for my outburst," he says, visibly uncomfortable. "I was stressed about another project and took it out on you. Your composure made me realize how unprofessional I was." Sarah's story illustrates a profound truth that spans across cultures and time, one that Buddhist masters have taught for centuries. When faced with disrespect, your greatest power often lies in silence. This isn't a new concept. We've all heard phrases like, "take the high road," or "don't stoop to their level." But what if this approach isn't just good advice? What if it's actually rooted in profound spiritual wisdom and confirmed by modern science? When someone disrespects you, your brain's amygdala, the emotional center, triggers an immediate fight or flight response. Your heart rate increases, stress hormones flood your system, and you feel an overwhelming urge to defend yourself. This is your ego's natural reaction, designed to protect your self-image. But what if there's a better way? What if, instead of being pulled into this reactive cycle, you could access a deeper power, one that protects your peace while allowing natural justice to unfold? This is the essence of what Buddhist philosophy calls letting karma speak. It's not about passive acceptance of mistreatment. It's about recognizing a profound truth, that responding to toxicity with more toxicity only creates a cycle of suffering, while responding with mindful silence creates space for transformation. Today, we'll explore this ancient wisdom through stories, science, and practical techniques that you can apply in your own life when faced with disrespect. In the vast teachings of Buddhism, there exists a powerful concept that addresses how to respond when faced with disrespect. Buddha once shared, "Like a solid rock is not shaken by the wind, so the wise are not moved by praise or blame." This teaching forms the foundation of our exploration today. When we examine the Buddhist perspective on silence after disrespect, we must first understand the concept of karma. Often misunderstood in Western culture as simple punishment or reward, karma is actually a profound natural law of cause and effect. Every action creates energy that eventually returns to its source. When someone disrespects you, they're creating negative energy that will naturally return to them without your intervention. This is why the Buddha taught that responding to anger with more anger is like picking up a hot coal to throw at someone else. You are the one who gets burned first. By staying silent, you're not suppressing your emotions. You're transcending the cycle of reactivity. Let me introduce you to a concept that isn't widely discussed outside Buddhist monasteries. Upekkha. This Pali term refers to equanimity, a state of mental calmness and composure. Especially in difficult situations, Upekkha isn't indifference. It's a balanced perspective that allows you to remain centered, regardless of external circumstances. When you practice Upekkha in the face of disrespect, you're not being passive. You're actively choosing to maintain your inner harmony, rather than letting someone else's negativity disturb it. This is the essence of true power. Another important Buddhist concept relevant to our discussion is Nekkhamma, renunciation. In this context, it means renouncing the need to defend your ego when attacked. By letting go of this need, you free yourself from the suffering that comes with attachment to how others perceive you. To illustrate these principles, let me share a story that has been passed down through generations of Buddhist teachers. A solitary monk walked down a narrow mountain path where the mist curled like whispers of time. His feet met the cold ground like a leaf touches water, without sound, without disturbance. He did not seek followers. He did not speak of righteousness. His only company was the moment and the silence between thoughts. One day, as he walked by a clearing, a group of travelers approached. Their hearts, unlike his, were not settled. Pride filled their chests, and judgment darted in their eyes. One among them, craving attention, mocked the monk with sharp words. "Are you too proud to speak, or just too foolish to know anything at all?" The others laughed, expecting reaction, anger, shame, or defense. But the monk did nothing. He only bowed lightly, then continued walking, with the same rhythm, same breath, same peace. The group fell silent, but one who carried bitterness like a stone in his chest followed. Each step he took, he hurled more insults, each word aimed like an arrow. "You must think you're better than others. Your silence means nothing. You are weak." Still, the monk said nothing. He reached a place by the river and sat down. The water moved like flowing time, endlessly calm, reflecting all without resistance. The man stood over him, hurling his last insult. "I insulted you, and you have no pride to respond. Are you empty?" Finally, the monk looked up with eyes that had seen lifetimes within a breath. "When someone gives you a gift and you do not accept it," he asked, "who owns it?" The man frowned. "The one who offered it, I suppose." The monk nodded. "I did not accept your gift." The man fell silent. The monk closed his eyes again. That day, the man walked away changed, not by being defeated, but by being reflected. This story beautifully illustrates the Buddhist approach to disrespect. The monk understood that insults only have power if we accept them. By not reacting, he returned the negativity to its source, allowing karma to unfold naturally. In the Dhammapada, one of the most widely read Buddhist scriptures, verse 223 states, "Conquer anger with non-anger. Conquer badness with goodness. Conquer meanness with generosity. Conquer dishonesty with truth." This teaching doesn't suggest fighting back against disrespect. It suggests transcending it entirely through virtuous qualities. The monk in our story wasn't practicing silence out of fear or weakness. His stillness came from knowing that one who is at peace cannot be provoked. In Buddhism, this is called sakka, truthfulness to oneself. When you know your own truth, external opinions lose their power over you. When someone disrespects you and you respond with anger, you become karmically bound to their energy. But when you walk away in silence, you leave them to face their own reflection. The guilt, the inner unrest, the whisper of conscience, these become the tools of karma. Here at the Noble Wisdom Path, We believe that this ancient wisdom offers a profound solution to modern problems. In a world where social media arguments and public shaming have become commonplace, the ability to remain silent in the face of disrespect is not just spiritually advanced, it's practically revolutionary. The disrespect hurled at you falls like seeds on stone. They cannot grow. Why? Because you give them no soil. You do not take them in. You allow the universe to respond, not your ego. This doesn't mean you never speak up or set boundaries. There's an important distinction between responding from a place of reactivity and speaking from a place of centered wisdom. The Buddha himself spoke firmly when necessary, but always from a place of compassion rather than ego. As we transition to our next section, remember this. The silence of the wise is not empty. It's full of understanding. It's not weakness, it's mastery. And in that silence, karma finds its voice. While Buddhist philosophy offers profound spiritual insights into the power of silence after disrespect, modern science provides fascinating evidence that supports these ancient teachings. Let's explore what happens in your brain and body when you choose silence over reaction. Meet Dr. Eleanor Richards, a distinguished professor of psychology specializing in emotional regulation. With her silver-gray hair cut in a practical bob and trademark round glasses, she spent 25 years researching how our responses to social threats affect our well-being. When someone disrespects you, Dr. Richards explains from her sunlit university office, surrounded by brain models and research papers, your brain processes it as a social threat. The amygdala, your brain's alarm system, activates immediately, triggering what we call the fight or flight response. This neurological reaction floods your body with stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. Your heart rate increases, your muscles tense, and your prefrontal cortex, the rational decision-making part of your brain, becomes temporarily impaired. This is why we often say or do things we later regret when we're insulted. What's fascinating, Dr. Richards continues, adjusting her cashmere sweater as she reaches for a brain scan image, is what happens when people practice mindful silence instead of reacting. Our research shows that regular meditation and mindful response training actually changes the neural pathways in the brain. These changes occur primarily in 3 areas. First, the amygdala, your emotional center, becomes less reactive over time. This means you don't experience the same intensity of emotional hijacking when faced with disrespect. Second, the prefrontal cortex, your rational brain, maintains better function during stressful encounters, allowing you to make wiser choices rather than impulsive ones. Third, the insula, associated with self-awareness and empathy, becomes more active, helping you recognize your emotions without being controlled by them. This neurological transformation is what psychologists call emotional regulation, the ability to manage your emotional responses effectively. It's a skill that can be developed through practice, and it's remarkably similar to what Buddhist practitioners have been cultivating for centuries through meditation. Another fascinating psychological concept relevant to our discussion is reactive attachment. This refers to the automatic way we become entangled in others' negative energy. When someone insults you and you react defensively, you create an unhealthy attachment to their negativity. By choosing silence, you break this attachment and preserve your emotional independence. Dr. Richards' research team conducted a groundbreaking study where participants were subjected to verbal criticism while their brain activity was monitored. Those who responded with defensive arguments showed prolonged stress responses lasting hours after the encounter. In contrast, those who practiced mindful silence recovered their physiological baseline within minutes. The health implications are significant, Dr. Richards notes. Chronic stress from repeated defensive reactions can lead to inflammation, cardiovascular issues, and weakened immunity. Essentially, by reacting to every disrespectful comment, you're not just suffering emotionally, you're potentially harming your physical health. This connects directly to what psychologists call cognitive reframing, the practice of consciously changing how you interpret situations. When someone disrespects you, instead of thinking, "I must defend myself," you can reframe it as, "This person's behavior reflects their inner state, not my worth." Sarah, our project manager from earlier, practiced this reframing technique during her confrontation. "In that moment when my colleague criticized me," she shares, "I consciously thought to myself, his reaction says more about him than about me or my work." This mental shift helped me respond with composure rather than defensiveness. The psychological benefits of choosing silence extend beyond the immediate interaction. Research shows that people who respond to criticism with defensive reactions often ruminate on the encounter for days, replaying it in their minds and extending their suffering. Those who practice mindful silence tend to process the experience more effectively and move forward without carrying emotional baggage. This aligns perfectly with the Buddhist concept of non-attachment. By not attaching your self-worth to others' opinions, you free yourself from unnecessary suffering. Dr. Richards points to another fascinating study on her computer screen. We've found that when people practice what we call response flexibility, the ability to pause between stimulus and response, they report higher levels of life satisfaction and better relationship quality. This pause is precisely what Buddhist practitioners cultivate through meditation. It's the space between an event, like being disrespected, and your response, a space where wisdom can enter. The psychological concept of emotional contagion is also relevant here. Emotions are literally contagious. When someone expresses anger toward you, your brain's mirror neurons naturally incline you to reflect that same emotion back. By consciously choosing silence, you interrupt this automatic mirroring and prevent the escalation of negative emotions. From a health perspective, the benefits of choosing silence over reaction are substantial. Reduced cortisol levels, which means less stress-related inflammation, lower blood pressure and heart rate, improved immune function, better sleep quality, reduced risk of stress-related illnesses. What's particularly interesting, Dr. Richards adds, leaning forward in her chair, is that these benefits don't just apply to the person practicing silence. When one person in an interaction chooses not to escalate with a defensive reaction, it often de-escalates the entire situation, benefiting everyone involved. This scientific understanding gives us a new appreciation for the Buddha's teaching. Hatred never ceases through hatred, but through love alone is healed. Modern neuroscience confirms that responding to negativity with more negativity only strengthens the noble wisdom path has always taught that inner peace is our natural state. Science now confirms that by choosing silence over reaction, we're not just acting wisely, we're returning our nervous system to its optimal functioning, allowing our bodies and minds to operate as they were designed to. Understanding the philosophy and science behind the power of silence is enlightening. But how do we actually practice this wisdom in our daily lives? Let's explore 5 practical techniques that you can apply when faced with disrespect. The first technique is what psychologists call the stop method, a powerful mindfulness practice that creates space between trigger and response. S. Stop what you're doing. T. Take a breath. O. Observe what's happening in your body and mind. P. Proceed with awareness. When someone disrespects you, your first instinct might be to react immediately. Instead, mentally say stop to yourself. Then take a deep breath, feeling the sensation of air entering and leaving your body. Observe the emotions arising, perhaps anger, embarrassment, or the urge to defend yourself. Notice these feelings without judgment. Finally, proceed with a conscious choice rather than an automatic reaction. Sarah practiced this technique during her confrontation in the conference room. When my colleague criticized me publicly, she explains, I mentally said stop to myself, took a deep breath, and noticed the tension in my shoulders and the heat in my face. This brief pause gave me just enough space to choose a response aligned with my values rather than my impulses. The second technique comes from Buddhist tradition, loving-kindness meditation, or metta. This practice might seem counterintuitive when someone has just disrespected you, but it's remarkably effective at transforming your internal experience. Here's a simplified version you can practice in the moment. Silently repeat these phrases. May I be peaceful in this moment. May I remember my worth is not determined by others' opinions. May this person find peace in their own heart. May we both be free from suffering. This doesn't mean you approve of their behavior. Rather, you're choosing not to let their negativity create more negativity within you. You're breaking the cycle. The third technique is journaling or written reflection. After an encounter where you've been disrespected, take time to process your experience through writing. This helps prevent rumination and transforms raw emotion into understanding. Ask yourself these questions. What exactly happened? Just the facts. What emotions did I experience? What might have been happening for the other person? What can I learn from this interaction? How can I care for myself now? This practice helps you metabolize difficult emotions and extract wisdom from challenging experiences. The fourth technique is what I call the observer perspective. When disrespected, mentally step back and observe the interaction as if you were a neutral third party. Notice the dynamics at play without being caught in them. Imagine watching the scene unfold on a movie screen. What do you notice about both people's body language? What might be driving each person's behavior? This perspective shift helps you respond from wisdom rather than reactivity. The fifth technique combines ancient wisdom with modern psychology. Values-based response. Instead of reacting based on emotion, respond based on your core values. Take a moment to identify your highest values. Perhaps they include integrity, compassion, growth, or peace. When faced with disrespect, ask yourself, how would a person deeply committed to these values respond in this situation? This approach transforms potentially reactive moments into opportunities to embody your deepest values. Let me share a personal experience where I applied these techniques. Last year, I was giving a presentation at a spiritual conference when an audience member interrupted me with a dismissive comment about my interpretation of a Buddhist text. My first instinct was to defend my credentials and knowledge. Instead, I practiced the stop method. I paused, took a breath, and observed the defensiveness arising in me. From this more centered place, I was able to respond with curiosity rather than defensiveness. That's an interesting perspective. Could you share more about your understanding of this text? What happened next was remarkable. The person who had been combative softened visibly. They shared their view, and we had a productive dialogue that enriched everyone's understanding. After the talk, they approached me to apologize for their tone and thank me for not shutting them down. This experience taught me that responding to disrespect with openness rather than defensiveness can transform potential conflict into connection. It's important to note that choosing silence doesn't mean accepting abuse or never speaking up. There's a crucial distinction between responding with mindful silence to occasional disrespect and enduring ongoing mistreatment. Setting healthy boundaries is essential, and sometimes the wisest response includes clearly communicating those boundaries. The key is the quality of your response. Whether it comes from reactive emotion or centered wisdom, sometimes the most powerful response might be saying calmly, "I don't accept being spoken to that way," and then disengaging. Other times, complete silence might be most effective. As you practice these techniques, be patient with yourself. Responding to disrespect with equanimity is a skill developed over time. You might not respond perfectly in every situation, and that's okay. Each interaction is an opportunity to practice and grow. remember that the noble wisdom path teaches us that true mastery comes not from never falling, but from rising each time we fall with greater awareness and compassion for others and ourselves. While Buddhist philosophy offers profound insights into the power of silence after disrespect, similar wisdom can be found in Western philosophical traditions. This cross-cultural convergence suggests we're touching on universal truths about human nature and effective responses to conflict. Stoicism, a philosophical school that flourished in ancient Greece and Rome, offers particularly relevant wisdom. The Stoics emphasized the importance of distinguishing between what we can and cannot control, what they called the dichotomy of control. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, wrote in his Meditations, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This remarkably parallels Buddhist teachings about non-attachment to external circumstances. When someone disrespects you, the Stoics would point out that their opinion and behavior are outside your control. What remains within your control is your response. By choosing silence, you're exercising the freedom that comes with this understanding. Epictetus, another prominent Stoic philosopher who began life as a slave, taught, "If someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation." This insight mirrors the Buddhist understanding that our suffering comes not from external events, but from our reaction to them. The Stoic practice of negative visualization, mentally rehearsing challenging scenarios, can help prepare you for moments of disrespect. By imagining yourself responding with equanimity to criticism or insults, you strengthen your capacity to do so when actually faced with such situations. Friedrich Nietzsche, though often misunderstood, offered the powerful concept of amor fati, love of fate. This philosophy encourages us to not merely accept all events in life, but to embrace them as necessary components of our journey. When faced with disrespect, this perspective allows us to ask, how might this challenging interaction be serving my growth? Socrates demonstrated the power of silence through his method of questioning. When faced with accusations and eventually sentenced to death, he maintained philosophical composure, choosing to question and examine rather than react defensively. His approach shows that thoughtful inquiry can be more powerful than defensive reaction. The existentialist philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre emphasized that we are defined not by what happens to us, but by how we choose to respond. His concept of radical freedom places the responsibility for our responses squarely on our shoulders. When someone disrespects you, you always have the freedom to choose your response, even if that choice is difficult. Viktor Frankl, who survived Nazi concentration camps, developed logotherapy based on his observation that those who maintained inner freedom, the ability to choose their attitude in any circumstance, were more likely to survive unimaginable suffering. He wrote, "Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. This space," Frankl describes, is precisely what we cultivate when we choose silence after disrespect, a space where wisdom can enter before reaction takes over. The philosophical traditions of East and West, though developed independently, arrive at strikingly similar conclusions about human response to adversity. Both recognize that true freedom lies not in controlling external circumstances, but in mastering our internal responses. When we examine these philosophical traditions together, we find a more complete picture of human potential. Buddhist philosophy offers sophisticated techniques for cultivating mindfulness and compassion, while Western philosophy provides frameworks for ethical decision-making and personal responsibility. The convergence of these traditions offers a powerful validation. Across time and culture, the wisest minds have recognized that responding to negativity with more negativity only perpetuates suffering. while responding with equanimity creates the conditions for transformation. As Ralph Waldo Emerson, the American transcendentalist philosopher, wrote, "For every minute you remain angry, you give up 60 seconds of peace of mind." This practical wisdom reminds us that when we react to disrespect with anger, we're primarily harming ourselves. The philosophical principle of non-contradiction suggests that truth cannot contradict itself. The fact that diverse philosophical traditions arrive at similar conclusions about the power of equanimity in the face of disrespect suggests we're touching on a fundamental truth about human experience. Here at the Noble Wisdom Path, we believe in drawing wisdom from all traditions while honoring their unique contributions. The power of silence after disrespect isn't just a Buddhist teaching, it's a human teaching, confirmed by philosophical inquiry across cultures and throughout history. As we prepare to explore how these principles apply to modern relationships, remember that you stand in a long tradition of wisdom when you choose equanimity over reactivity. You're not just practicing a technique, you're embodying a profound philosophical insight about human freedom and dignity. Now that we've explored the Buddhist wisdom, psychological science, practical techniques, and philosophical foundations of responding to disrespect with silence, let's examine how these principles apply to our modern relationships, at home, at work, and in our digital interactions. In his later days, our monk from the earlier story sat often by a river. He watched the water flow, sometimes swift, sometimes still. A traveler came, burdened by sorrow. "My family betrayed me. My friends slandered me," the traveler lamented. "I shouted, I fought, I cried, but nothing changed. They grew more distant." The monk pointed to the river. "Speak to it," he said. The traveler knelt, shouted at the water, cursed it, demanded answers. Nothing changed. The river flowed on. Frustrated, the man turned to the monk. "It does not listen." "Yet it nourishes everything," the monk said. "It carries stones without complaint. It reaches the ocean without asking for approval." The traveler wept. "So I should stay silent like the river?" "No," the monk said. "Stay peaceful like the river. Speak when your words flow like healing, not when they rage like flood." This story offers profound guidance for our modern relationships. Like the river, we can learn to move through life with purpose and peace, not disturbed by every stone thrown our way. Let's consider how this applies to 3 key areas of modern life. First, in family relationships where emotional stakes are highest. When a family member disrespects you, perhaps a teenager in a moment of rebellion, a spouse during an argument, or an in-law with a critical comment, your immediate reaction might be to defend or counterattack. Instead, try applying the stop method we discussed earlier. Create that crucial space between trigger and response. Remember that in close relationships, patterns of interaction become deeply ingrained. By choosing silence over reactive defense, you can begin to transform these patterns. Sarah, our project manager, applied this approach with her teenage son. When he told me I was the worst mom ever after I set a boundary about screen time, she shares, "Instead of responding with, 'How dare you speak to me that way?' I took a breath and simply said, 'I understand you're upset. I'm here when you're ready to talk.' 20 minutes later, he came and apologized without my prompting. This doesn't mean becoming a doormat. It means responding from wisdom rather than reactivity. Sometimes the wisest response includes setting clear boundaries, but doing so from a centered place rather than emotional reactivity. Second, in professional relationships where power dynamics and career stakes complicate interactions. When a colleague undermines you in a meeting, a client speaks condescendingly, or a supervisor criticizes unfairly, the pressure to immediately defend yourself can be intense. Consider the bamboo in a storm. Seasons passed, storms came, winds raged, and the trees of the forest trembled under the sky's wrath. Only the bamboo bent low, whispering with the wind, never resisting, and when the storm ended, the proud trees that once stood tall had snapped. But the bamboo, though bowed, stood upright again. Like the bamboo, professional resilience often comes not from rigid resistance, but from flexible strength. This doesn't mean accepting mistreatment. It means responding strategically rather than reactively. When faced with workplace disrespect, consider, what outcome do I actually want from this situation? Often, maintaining professional relationships and demonstrating emotional intelligence serve your long-term interests better than momentary self-defense. Third, in digital interactions, where the absence of face-to-face cues and the permanence of written words create unique challenges. When someone leaves a harsh comment on your social media post, sends a critical email, or misrepresents you in a digital forum, the distance between you can make reactive responses even more tempting. Digital communication lacks the regulatory feedback of in-person interaction, the subtle facial cues and body language that help us modulate our responses. This makes mindful silence even more valuable in online spaces. Before responding to digital disrespect, ask yourself, will my response contribute to understanding or merely escalate conflict? Would I say this in person? How might this response look if shared beyond its intended audience? Often, the wisest response to digital disrespect is no response at all, or a brief acknowledgement that doesn't engage with the negativity. Remember that on the internet, arguments can persist indefinitely, while silence allows tensions to dissipate. Across all these contexts, family, professional, and digital, the principle remains the same. When disrespected, create space before responding. In that space, wisdom can enter. The noble wisdom path teaches us that true strength isn't measured by how forcefully we respond to others, but by how centered we remain, regardless of external circumstances. Like the river that continues its journey regardless of what's thrown into it, we can learn to move through life with purpose and peace. As we prepare to conclude, remember that practicing silence after disrespect doesn't mean you never speak up. It means you speak from wisdom rather than reactivity. And sometimes that wisdom will guide you to remain silent. As we draw our exploration to a close, let's gather the essential wisdom we've discovered about the silent power that emerges when we choose not to react to disrespect. We began with Sarah's story, a modern example of how choosing composure over reactivity can transform a potentially damaging interaction into an opportunity for growth and understanding. Her experience showed us that silence isn't weakness, it's mastery. We explored the Buddhist philosophy that teaches us about karma, the natural law of cause and effect that operates without our intervention. When someone disrespects you and you respond with anger, you become karmically bound to their energy. But when you walk away in silence, you leave them to face their own reflection. We discovered the neuroscience behind this wisdom, how mindful silence activates our prefrontal cortex rather than our amygdala, allowing us to respond from wisdom rather than reactivity. We learned about the health benefits of choosing peace over conflict, including reduced stress hormones and improved immune function. We practiced 5 techniques for maintaining equanimity when disrespected: the stop method, loving kindness meditation, journaling, the observer perspective, and values-based response. Each of these tools helps create that crucial space between trigger and response, the space where wisdom can enter. We found validation in Western philosophical traditions, like Stoicism, which teaches us to distinguish between what we can and cannot control. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." And finally, we applied these principles to our modern relationships, family, professional, and digital, learning that like the river, we can move through life with purpose and peace, not disturbed by every stone thrown our way. The noble wisdom path guides you to find strength in silence and wisdom in patience. When you stay quiet after disrespect, you're not hiding your truth, you're protecting your peace. You're not submitting, you're transcending. You're allowing karma to explain what your words cannot. In a world that often equates volume with power, remember that true strength is quiet. Real courage is patient. And sometimes, the most powerful response is no response at all, just the steady continuation of your own path, like the river flowing toward the ocean. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of the silent power that emerges when we choose peace over reaction. If you found value in these teachings, I invite you to deepen your journey with us. Join the Noble Wisdom Path community. Subscribe, hit the bell, and share your reflections below. I'd love to hear about your experiences with practicing silence in the face of disrespect. In our next video, we'll explore another aspect of Buddhist wisdom for modern life, the practice of non-attachment in a world that constantly tells us to want more. Until then, may you find strength in silence, wisdom in patience, and peace in every step of your journey.